Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to the Seaside Allotment channel, and this video is about our back garden project. So we've got already in the back garden a kind of little kitchen garden and fruit garden, which is really nice, but generally what we've historically filled it with is just odds and ends that we've got left over after planting the allotment. And so what we end up with is a sort of mishmash of really inappropriate things, so like beetroot and carrots and colettes and sprouts and kale and things like that, which really they fill the beds, and actually they do look quite nice over summer, but they're the least sort of appropriate crops for the back garden. What we decided to do last year, and we're executing it this year, is that we're completely re-envisioning what we want the back garden to be. And basically we want it to be our primary harvest destination for late spring, summer and early autumn, for all the kind of leafy greens. So that's all the kind of kales and sprout leaves, and all of the salad ingredients, and all of the kind of cooking greens like spinach and New Zealand spinach, and those sorts of things. Extra salad ingredients like, say, baby carrots, and radishes and all of that sort of thing. So that's a big change, and there's a few reasons for that. The primary reason is it just is so much easier for us because it means that all the harvesting is done in the back garden, and we can harvest on a daily basis exactly what we need. And we've got plentiful supply of water there. We can just pop the sprinkler on, we can water the whole of the garden pretty much effortlessly, a couple of times a week, and it's just and it's going to look beautiful because the leafy greens, especially the salad greens, are really lovely, and they make for a really ornamental display as well as a productive one. So we're kind of really excited about that. Now, in order to do that, we've doubled the size of our growing space in the back garden, and so this little video, we've also upgraded the quality of the soil, the compost in the beds, to bring them up to the same sort of productivity levels that we get in the allotment. And there's another benefit as well, which is that the back garden has kind of regions in it that have got various degrees of shade. It's got some very sunny areas, which are fantastic in spring and early autumn when light levels are kind of a little bit lower, but there are some of those are a little bit too sunny for the lettuces, for example, and some of the brassicas in midsummer, whereas the new beds that we put in are quite shaded. It's just because that's the space that we've got available. Really, it wasn't a real intention, but because they're slightly shaded, partial shade, I think they only get like 4 or 5 hours probably of direct sunlight in summer, maybe 6. They're perfect, or hopefully they're perfect for the salads, and we're kind of trying to find things like, say, green garlic and things like that, which are going to be good in early spring, and lamb's lettuce and things like that, and spinach. So we think there's certain things that'll still grow there, even in sort of low light levels of early spring. But from sort of late spring, summer, that garden should be perfectly sunny enough for the salad crops. And there are kind of some other reasons as well, which are just important just to clarify. So one is that we're no longer allowed to wash our vegetables on the allotment site. And so that's a big change, and it's a real pain for the leafy greens. They always need washing. They've got lots of slugs and stuff in them and things like that, so that they all need to be washed off, bits of green fly and whatever. But really, when you're harvesting loose leaf greens, you can't sort of harvest them and then leave them for 2 hours while you're working on the allotment or completing the harvest, and then drag them all the way home and then expect them to be in good quality. They're just not, after that sort of amount of time. They really need to be picked, put in water, washed and packed, all within sort of half an hour. And so being able to do that at home and not being able to do that on the allotment, it just makes a lot of sense. The other thing is, we always try to grow a surplus for our friends. It's part of our climate change commitment to become carbon neutral, And one of the ways that we're doing that is by growing a lot of food for our friends and family. And of course, we also want our friends and family to eat the wonderful quality food that we're growing as well, to improve their health and save them some money. Now, we're no longer allowed to grow food for friends and neighbours and things on the allotment side, so that's another reason to grow in the back garden. It just means that we've got a huge amount of stuff there which we can gift without any issues. So that's a big plus. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. So that's the reasons why we're doing this big kitchen garden project. It's just going to, a lot easier for us, complies with the allotment rules, easier to water, much more convenient, and all of that sort of thing. So it's an exciting project. So I'll show you basically the first phase of what we're doing now, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you think. Oh, there's the other thing, is that it'd be quite nice for some YouTubers, because this is only a relatively small area, quite practical for quite a lot of ordinary back gardens, and we think that we'll be completely self-sufficient in the summer greens, leafy greens, from that back garden. Or there's no way that we'll be self-sufficient in all the root vegetables and the onions and all of the beans and all that sort of thing. And of course, there's no chance at all that we could be self-sufficient over winter from the back garden. So that kind of becomes the focus for the allotment. And it just so happens that all those things, the onions and the root vegetables, etc., and all the winter brassicas and all of that, they grow really well without as much water and without as much attention. So we've got a lot of compost ingredients. We've got 50-50 split between spent mushroom compost and well rotted horse manure, and I always put the rotted horse manure at the bottom and the spent mushroom compost at the top. The spent mushroom compost is sterilised, steam sterilised, so there's no weeds in it, and it's finer as well. It's a nicer planting surface. I'll show you it all later. Right at the bottom, these are the ingredients from the result of our worm bin being emptied. And so we've got a couple of barrel loads of this stuff, and so that's going to go right at the bottom of the beds. So the beds are going to run all the way along here, laid on top of the grass, and then there's going to be cardboard underneath them, and then, as I said, worm castings, then horse manure, then mushroom compost. And this garage provides quite a lot of shade in summer to that part of what was the lawn. Not a huge amount, but enough to help the salads get through summer nice and healthy. So we're also raising the level of these existing beds, and we want to do that because these beds, the soil in them is very poor from a nutritional point of view. We want to put another 3 or 4 inches of compost on top. So some of that's going to be spent potato compost, and then the rest of it's going to be the same mix that we're using for the new beds. And basically we're just putting 6 inches on top, because we're on very sandy soil here, and so basically these beds are mostly just filled with sandy soil from other parts of the garden. So we're going to try and improve the quality of what's growing in here, and we notice that because when we compare what grows on the allotment with what grows here, there's just a really big difference in terms of the size and quality of the produce. In these beds in particular, because as I said, the soil quality isn't that great. So when I make my beds, I basically make them all the same. They always use just 6x1 treated timber for the sides, and 6x2 treated timber for the ends, and the braces down the centre. I just find this provides a really stable structure, and it's just, the construction method is just so simple. Basically it's just 3 stainless steel screws at each junction, and it just divides up the bed really nicely. What I also find is I stand on these all the time, or I lean on them. So when I'm harvesting from this side, I'll be leaning over like this, and it's just really nice to have this centerpiece to support me. And as I say, I also, when I'm moving from one side of the garden over here to over here, I just stand on them, and it's just really useful. And it's the same story on the allotments, same basic structure, really simple to do. All the cut ends of the wood, because it's treated wood, so I only treat the cut ends with cuponol, and I just put that in one of these containers and then just rest it in there for 30 seconds or so, and it soaks up really quickly, a couple of inches or an inch or so into the wood after about 30 seconds, which seems to be all that's needed. So that's the basics of the bed framing. We'll level everything up once we get the wood in. And we've actually done it in two separate sections because it's just too unwieldy to move around when it's all fully assembled at its full length. But in two sections it's easy enough to move, and we do need to move it because we've got compost, we've got cardboard to lay down on top of this grass, and we're going to take up, obviously we're going to take up all of that grass, and we're going to put pebbles in like we've got around the patio edge, and that's just really useful when we're cleaning the path with the hose pipe and things like that, so the water drains into the pebbles down there. Plus it looks attractive, and it just makes the path just that little bit wider. It was a little bit narrow if we'd had the beds right up against the edge there, so that's the logic there. So we just chopped out that little gully and levelled the base, and we're going to line this with a little bit of landscape fabric, and then we'll put in stones on top to hold the landscape fabric in place, and we'll take the landscape fabric and just loop it under the raised bed just to seal off the weeds there. Okay, that's the next step done. We just put some cardboard down. I don't think it's strictly necessary, I've certainly not done it before and not had any problems, but since we got the cardboard we thought we might as well. It just stops any weeds growing up through the mulch. So the next step is the worm compost, and that's going at the bottom because it tends to be full of tomato seeds. So we've put the couple of inches of horse manure, and it's really nice stuff. I'm very pleased with it. We get it from a local supplier, KC Compost, and I've also put 2 handfuls of seaweed meal down up this layer. This is the root zone effectively for the plants, so this is where we want all the nutrition. And next up is the mushroom compost, which is less nutrition but sterile. And it's the next day. I just popped down to Home Bargains and got these pebbles, and I think that finishes it off really nicely, and it kind of just contrasts, well, it doesn't contrast, complements the pebbles that are down here. We do all of our washing of our vegetables on this patio here, and so it's covered in soil all the time, and all of that gets brushed into this pebble path. So over time it builds up quite a lot of soil in there. So every year, or a couple of years, we just take these pebbles out, wash them down, get rid of the soil and put them back. But it's just a really useful kind of buffer zone between this dirty patio and the grass. So there's still a lot of tidying up to do, but basically all the woodwork is finished, and obviously all of these beds are going to be filled 2/3 full, and so that will provide a 4-inch mulch over the soil. And we put this little kickboard in basically down here to stop encroachment of the grass onto the paths that run between those beds. And so There's the other bed finished. So still got quite a lot of work to do. Got all my blueberries to transplant and lots of cleaning up to do on the strawberry beds at the back there. But I'll do a proper tour of the garden another day. So yeah, I think with that I'll finish off. It's been a good day. We've got a lot done. So you enjoyed that quick video, and it'll be interesting to see how this project progresses, because obviously I've only seen the very first stages and this is just about the infrastructure that we built for the job. I'm going to do a lot of work obviously to pretty this all up and get it all planted. So I'll show you that soon. See you soon.